I'm so glad to be with you today. I am joined by just the most delightful friend of mine. Her name is Miss Sunni Dallas. And gosh, Sunny, we've been friends for 10 years now, at least, right?
I think it was 2016, I think is when I first met you, so almost 10 years.
Almost 10 years, almost. Okay. Yeah. I thought it was along about then. Sunny, tell everybody how many kids you have and a little bit about your family because you have such a fun family.
Thank you. Okay, I'd be happy to. So, my husband, Nate, and I have been married for over 22 years, and we have 7 children, 6 of whom are boys and 1 little girl. And we have that so our oldest is now 18, which is crazy because he's a man child. And then
Yes.
now our youngest is 20 months old now. And we've been
Uh,
homeschooling for this is our 11th year homeschooling.
yeah. So for a nice long time. Okay. So we met like really close to at the beginning of your homeschool journey.
Yes, I had a sweet dear friend who had been homeschooling a little bit longer ahead of me. She started a couple years before me, and she introduced me to your podcast from the beginning. I remember listening actually the way that we met. I remember listening to your podcast for a couple years and thinking her accent sounds exactly like mine. She cannot live too far from me. So then I went to the Great Homeschool Convention and I went to our mutual friend, Sarah McKenzie's talk, which was also the first time that I met her. And you were sitting, I think you were doing like her audio visual or something in the front of the room. And I saw your hair from the back and I was like, what? I wonder if that's Pam Barnhill. And that's her. I'm going to go ask her where she's from. And that was how we met. And sure enough, we live, I don't know, not even 2 hours away from each other. And that's how it all started.
Yes, that is how it does. That's always such a fun story because you knew by the accent that we had to live,
Yeah.
we had to live close to each other. And I love that. And Sunny being the extrovert she is, just not afraid to come on up and introduce herself and say, hey, where do you live?
Mhm.
So, and then so through the years, we've seen each other typically like once or twice a year. Sometimes it's been a little longer than that when you've been busy having babies and things like that. But yeah, it's been such a delight through the years to get to spend time with you. We took a trip earlier this year in March. Actually, we've seen each other twice this year, so that's a bonus. Yeah. Sunny has been homeschooling for a very long time. And if you caught this with the 7 kids, she has had a lot of newborns through the years of her homeschooling. And so she's had, I think when we met, you had 3 boys.
Actually, I had 4. I had 4 by that point.
Okay. And so you've added 3 more since then. And all during your homeschooling journey, you've been juggling this stage of life where you've had babies, you've had toddlers, you've had school age, and now you're getting to where you have high school as well. You said you're man child, but you actually have 3 man-childs.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're officially taller than me.
Yeah. Yeah. What is the biggest challenge to this? What is the biggest challenge with homeschooling so many different age groups and always having a baby or a toddler tagging along? Because there's really never been a time when you haven't.
You're right. You're right. I would say that you just hit the nail on the head. The biggest challenge, aside from the fact that this house is full of broken and sinful human beings, myself, the biggest challenge is the wide age range. We have, when the baby was born, we had one that was learning to drive and apply for jobs. We had 2 that were navigating puberty. I was teaching 2 of them to read, one of them to use the potty, and nursing a baby all at the same time.
Hmm.
So I would say that wide age range is the biggest challenge. And in organizing our time in a way where we can be productive and we're not wasting the time, but also trying to leave enough free time where we can be flexible and nourish our relationships. I would say that's also been a challenge. And every time you have a new baby or the season changes from babyhood to toddlerhood or toddlerhood to school age and so on down the line, you have to reorganize your time again and you have to
Yeah.
get this big kid to help out this little kid with this activity and just restructure the whole puzzle. Aside from those challenges, I would say keeping a check on our attitudes is also a challenge, I think, for all families, no matter how many kids you have.
It is true.
My
Yeah.
attitude as well. Most of the kids will take on mom's attitude.
This is so true. This is so true. I wanted to have Sunny on today because in 2023, along about March, we started the Wonder World podcast. And it wasn't too long after that, probably 2 or 3 months, I get this text from Sunny telling me that how much they're loving the Wonder World podcast and that you're using it in a unique way, and you're using it in a unique way as part of a bigger thing that you do. And I thought that how you use Wonder World would be inspirational for other moms who have a big family and who are juggling lots of different people, especially during a season of time that they have a newborn. So tell me what you guys were doing. Not just, it is Wonder World, but it's also a lot of other things too. And we're going to get into that. But what were you doing with Wonder World?
All right. So when my three bigs were the littles, having a morning time was relatively easy. They were all young. They were similar in age. It was not hard for me to just stop the runnings of the day, pull everybody together, sit around the table, and have our morning time. But as they grew older and more babies came, it got more and more difficult for me to stop the constant swirl of life that was happening around us with all the needs and all the work, the schoolwork, the housework, the childcare needs, the discipline, the lessons, the on and on. It got really hard for me to make that all stop for a minute and organize everybody, sit them all down, and us have this beautiful time of learning about things that were true and that were good and that were beautiful. And so for several years, we went without what I would call an official morning time. But I really wanted to reinstate it back into our schedule. I just could not really see how I was going to do that unless someone else did all the work for me. So, and then happening, I thought, okay, we're all gathering for lunch anyway. We happen to all be in the same, room, and I can tag onto that anchor of the day,
Mhm.
some learning resources. So I found some resources on the internet that I was just pulling up on my laptop and playing for the kids, whether it be audio like podcasts or videos and that kind of things from YouTube or whatever. And I realized that it worked really well because there were less interruptions from the kids because they were eating and their mouths were full
Yes.
to eat without having to be the one doing all the talking. And so I remember, I think the text that you were referring to earlier was me maybe nursing the baby with one hand, and the Wonder World podcast is playing in the background. And I think I panned with my phone, like the head of the baby, and then all the way around all the six other kids. And you and Olivia are talking in the background. And basically, what I did was just set up the laptop on the island in the kitchen where everybody could see it. And I can just hit play. So I'm nursing the baby with one arm and I'm feeding myself with the other arm, all the while you and Olivia and these other resources that we use, these other people, they've done all the planning, they've done all the gathering of the books, they've done all of the research, they're doing the actual talking about the thing. And I could just literally hit play and eat lunch while my kids continued to learn. And so the Wonder World podcast came after those several years of me wishing that I could reinstitute morning time. And basically, that's what it was for us for a while. It was like our mini morning time that we could just do during lunch with the
I
rest morning at that time. So it was a
I
nice
love
way.
it. Yes, I love it so much. And you've hit upon so many key elements here. First of all, their mouths are full. They're a captive audience. You could do this during breakfast or you could do it during lunch. And I have a feeling you guys are probably a little more spread out for breakfast, and lunch is the time that you come together. So for families out there going, because my family, we never eat lunch together. But breakfast is something that's so much easier for us to eat together. And actually, we typically do eat breakfast during our morning time. We actually just finished morning time not that long ago, and we were breakfasting while we were watching The World from A to C. So I totally get this concept of everybody's attention is captured. And then you also said everybody, like the other people, meaning in this case, me and Olivia, but then whatever other resources you're using, they're doing all the planning for you. They've found all the stuff. They're doing all the planning, and you don't have to do anything. And then your mouth is not moving. So you're able to eat at the same time. And for a busy mom, it's always a bonus when you get to sit down and eat. Yeah, so many fabulous things all rolled up into that right there.
The thing that I wanted to mention, in case anybody else is wondering how they're potentially going to implement this in their own homeschools, is I had mentioned that I set up the computer where everyone could see it. If y'all were talking about Mendeleev and the periodic table, I could quickly click over on my computer and pull up an image of the periodic table so that they could all see what it is they're hearing you talk about, or Monet and some of his artwork and that kind of thing. Same thing. So that was always a big help too. It's just like the click of a button instead of me having to literally having not enough hands was my problem. Trying to get all the things done that needed to happen all at once, it felt. And so just being able to hit the fork down, click the button, pull up the image, whatever, and then they're continuing to learn as I'm continuing to cue.
I talk about the dangers of multitasking, but sometimes you just got to multitask. And this is one of those places where I think it works.
I've heard people say that. And I'm like, y'all, if I did not multitask, people would die. Like, I don't do not see how you cannot multitask and take care of all these things all the time.
Okay, so let's talk about some favorites. So I was so happy to hear that you guys were listening to the podcast. What were some of the things that the kids liked about it?
So I remember their favorite thing that was ever mentioned ever on the podcast. Let me back up a minute. Okay, so first of all, I limit screen time for my kids, much to their dismay. And the vast majority of the screen time that they do get is educational. And we use screens for our math and for this kind of learning at lunch and that kind of thing. And so the day that it happened to be my birthday, you and Olivia announced that apparently my birthday falls on National Video Game Day. So my kids were like, "Oh, Mom, you heard it. Miss Pam said." So shouldn't we just shut all this down and you just let us play video games for the rest? So that's definitely the one they like to bring up a lot. And I remember, I enjoy the poems, fables. They do love fables a lot. So sometimes you guys bring that in and tell the story, like of Hansel and Gretel and different things like that. So I would say that's probably one of their favorite parts. And they like a good joke every now and then too.
Yes, I think jokes are probably some of my favorite parts, even though some of them are a little bit grown worthy. We tell dad jokes, but sometimes we just get to giggling. The outtakes that y'all don't get to hear are hilarious. Oh, goodness. Okay, so let's talk about some of the other things that you do, because Wonder World is just one part. So love that you're helping me sing the praises of Wonder World here, but we also want to make this practical for parents who are thinking, oh, maybe this is something I could do myself. So what other kinds of resources have you found that you utilize during lunch?
You mentioned one that you guys did I learned about from you, which is The World from A to Z with Carla Zeus. We're big fans of that. And then being Catholic, we also enjoy videos with Father Mike Schmitz. He does the Bible podcast, and now he's doing Catechism in the Year, or he has done it. I just haven't finished it yet. I have one, but I'm getting there. And then there is also, he's with Ascension Presents. I don't know if I said that or not, but so there's the Ascension Presents videos, and then there's another one that we enjoy called Breaking in the Habit, and it's a Franciscan who tells like Catholic jokes and answers commonly asked questions about Catholicism and that kind of thing. So those are some of the other ones. And then there has been a time in the past, and we may do this again in the future. Again, we're always trying to fit these puzzle pieces together. And so it may find its way back into our lunchtime learning, but we also are a part of classical conversations. And so we have these memory songs. And sometimes we would use our lunchtime to just listen to the songs to try to get them in the kids' memories.
Yeah, I love that. And there are just so many things you could do. There are definitely audiobooks. Is a plethora of kids' podcasts, not just Wonder World. My kids used to enjoy one called Brains On, which was a science podcast that they enjoyed a whole lot when they were younger. Then there are all kinds of just story resources. The kids were talking about, and I'm going to be honest, we never came up with the name of this app, but there used to be an app that we used that had all these stories on it. The kids were just talking about it the other day and just how fondly they remembered that app and all the different stories that were on there. I think that had all the Boxcar Children and things like that, and you would just push play on it. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of this app because
There
what is it? Yeah, Sarah might know, but it was just like an audio compilation app with all of these different audiobooks, and you paid one price. But you can find things like that out there so that do have the stories, and then YouTube is such an amazing wealth of information. We also watched some of the Ascension Presents videos. We did it 2 years ago in morning time. We watched a Father Mike video about 2 to 3 times a week because I find he's just really great and relatable for teenagers. And the videos, yes, the videos are short. They're like 3 to 5 minutes long. And then I'm sure for our Protestant friends, there's probably like a very similar resource. So you can bring in Bible reading, devotional kinds of things. Music, classical music is another great thing. And then like Sunny said, the audio from memory work and different things like that. So when it comes time to hit play during lunch, though, how much of a plan for that have you actually planned out?
I really haven't planned much of that out. I just know what resources are out there. And sometimes we have a little bit more time. Sometimes we have a little bit less time. A couple of my kids are in piano and their teacher comes 15 minutes after we typically start lunch. So on those days, I have to keep things really short. And so I just see like I do have a watch later list in YouTube. Or actually, I think I'll call it lunchtime videos. That's what it is. Lunchtime videos. I have a list of, and I can just go and see how long each video is and what we have time for and click on that one and let it go. So if that list is starting to run low, then I'll try to spend a few minutes adding to that playlist.
Okay, so that's something you do maybe when you're nursing the baby or something like that, is you're sitting there on your phone and you're adding things to that lunchtime videos list as when it gets lower. And then when you open it up for the day, you just scroll through and look and see how long things are. And then for something like Wonder World, it comes out on Monday. And I can listen on Monday, I can listen on Tuesday. We're going to check the Wonder World for the week, and then we're going to move on to the next one, move on to the next thing.
I know you're a big proponent. I learned about loop scheduling from you. And I guess in a sense, there's a loose loop. I know that it's going to be one of these 4 or 5 different resources, and it's just a matter of picking the one that fits within the time.
Okay, love that. Okay, so I have a question for you. We didn't really talk about this one. We have started linking last year's Wonder World episode in this year's. Have y'all gone back and listened to any of the old ones? Because each year it's the same. It's always the third week in October. We try to do it slightly different, and we're linking last year. So have y'all done that at all?
We haven't necessarily done them in order. I do try when you did the Hansel and Gretel, for instance, over several podcasts. And we had been skipping around, but we ended up like in the middle of Hansel and Gretel. And I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe you need to actually go back and try to do this in order. I try to stick loosely to that, but I don't know that we've gone back and
And
listened.
listen to an old one. I was just wondering because, like, we always link it. I'm like, I wonder if people who have listened to it already would ever go back and listen to it again just because it's the second week of October again and they're different.
And just because we don't do it, obviously doesn't mean that might not
Yeah.
help people.
Okay, so you're telling me a wild child and that you skip around the episodes. Totally shocking, I must say, knowing Sunny Dallas. But so here's the question. Do you ever listen to one when it's not that week? Do you ever listen to the first week of October on the third week of October?
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
I just read like the little intro or the overview of what it is. And if there are things that we may have recently learned about in some other part of our homeschool week, then we might listen to that particular episode because it mentioned something that we were already learning about.
Yeah.
All the time. I certainly don't pre-read for every time we do it, but occasionally I do.
Okay, that's fascinating. I was like, you never know how somebody's using a particular resource. And I'm like, surely, like, after a week's gone past, it's old and nobody's going to listen to it, but y'all actually do.
Definitely go back. Yeah.
Do you see your kids making connections with all of this stuff that you're just putting out there at lunch?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. That's what real learning is just making connections between all these ideas that we're presenting to our kids. Oh, yeah. They're always engaging in things that they've learned. And crossing it over with this other thing and comparing things the older they get. And it's been really cool to watch as they've grown, because when they're little, they're just telling you about what they've heard. And then as they get a little bit older, they're starting to want to understand why. And then they continue as their brains develop to want to then make comparisons about things and how are these things similar and how are they different. Um, and then being able to actually teach it back to you is just a real joy to watch. And there are plenty of things that my kids know far more about than I do.
Yeah.
And I'd say what surprises me, I think, more than seeing them make these connections, because that's just constant, so commonplace that it's not really surprising anymore. I would say the thing that's more surprising is when they already know something that is being, say, presented in the podcast that I'm learning for the first time. And I'm like, how did you know that? Where did you learn that? And from this thing that I read or that video that I watched or whatever the thing is, which just goes to show that as long as we're teaching our kids how to learn and trying to encourage them to notice things, observe things, and wonder about things, there's no stopping what they're going to learn for the rest of their lives. And that's just been really cool to watch. And then if it's something that they want to learn, that they found themselves, those are the things that really stick in their memory more than the things that we may teach them, because they're learning about things that they're interested in, which
Yeah.
always, yeah.
Yeah. I love that so much. And my kids do that all the time. They're constantly just surprising me with what they know that I've never taught them and they've learned on their own and that they're interested. I'm like, I had no idea you were interested in this. And yeah, it's really neat. With the Wonder World podcast, we also have the Wonder Kids Club, which I know you've looked at. How could that resource help moms, busy moms who are juggling like multiple kids?
I would say what I noticed there is that there's something for everybody. Again, with the wide age range that we have with our kids, there's really something that appeals to all the ages there. There's crossword puzzles, there's coloring pages, there are bonus audio files and picture study and even more. And I would say for a busy homeschool mom, all of that information, all of those resources, again, the work's already been done. It's right
Yeah.
there. And you just click on it and magically you can print it off. You can just have it displayed on the screen, however it is you want to engage your kids with that information, and pick and choose what suits your people best, all the way from teenagers to toddlers.
Yeah, I love, first of all, we've had people with preschoolers tell us they love, like, they want more coloring pages. They love coloring pages, especially related to the topic that their kid's listening to something about. And then there's a coloring page that goes with this. My favorite are the picture studies.
Love those. That's probably my favorite too.
Yeah, you just put up the piece of artwork on that computer screen, and then Miss Pam is the one asking the questions, and you hit pause and let the kids notice different things and answer the questions and stuff like that. So that one is always so much fun for me to record, but also like to imagine this is just, I wish so much that I had this resource when my kids were 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. You can even use it with a teenager. And it's not as novel for my kids because it's me.
Right.
I'm gonna be honest. It's the whole thing where, like, somebody else comes and tells your kid something, and they're like, "Mom, guess what so and so told me?" And you're sitting over here going, "I've been saying this forever."
So true. So true.
Uh, but families have told me that their kids like it when I say things. Exactly. And then just the little bonus bits of audio, which I have to tell you every month when I record those, I always learn something new that I 100% didn't know. And then it's funny because Olivia and I, because the bonus audios always go along with something that are in the podcast. And a lot of times I'll record the bonus ahead of time. And then Olivia and I will be recording the podcast and the bit of tie-in information will come up and she'll go, I didn't know anything about that. And I'll say, oh, let me tell you all about it. I know because I recorded the bonus audio. So
Right.
it's fun for me to make connections too. Sunny, thank you so much for coming and joining me today and just talking about Wonder World and how you've used this and some of the other resources that you've used. I thought it was such a smart way for you to maximize learning time to be able to fit in a version of morning time. And that's what you told me in that text you sent me. You're like, hey, thank you so much for Wonder World. This is our morning time right now because I got this little bitty baby in my arms. And so I just thought it was so smart and something that a lot of other parents could get some value out of. And we appreciate you being a Wonder World listener.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.